Hi, everybody. I'm Jax James, NORML State Policy Manager. I appreciate y'all all hopping on with me today to go over some of our recaps from across the country. It has been a busy week. In fact, today, staff and interns are still going through dozens of bills that have been filed that we need to work on for today. So I have notes today to go over with everyone. But first of all, I will let you know everything I'm about to go over is in that first link that you see in the description here. You can click there and check all of our updates. You can also go to norml.org/act and you'll find our federal actions there. And you'll also find any of our priority legislative actions state by state. So you can do that as well. I'll go ahead and I'll kick it off today with Alaska. A is for Alaska today. There's legislation, HB 246, to seal the records of those convicted with certain low-level crimes. It's 9 different types of background checks that they would be excluded from. People with clean records, this shouldn't, these activities that are now legal in Alaska should not, residually harm them forever. So that is a great bill, and it did have a hearing on the 19th, and we're hoping to have information on the vote, or if they will be holding a vote on that soon, but there was a hearing for that. Next, A is for Arizona. We've got a couple A's today. So if you're in Arizona, HB 2206 has been filed, and it would allow those with autism spectrum disorder and the symptoms associated with it, like agitation, rage attacks, or self-injurious behaviors, and those that are military veterans with PTSD to be eligible for cannabis therapy in Arizona. So those are some additional conditions that they would like to change to their qualified condition list. Next is Delaware. And I see some comments here. I see Mississippi is here, a couple other people. So if you have questions, South Carolina, we will circle back, or I will, circle back for some questions toward the end. So next is Delaware. So there's HB 305, which is the, newly revisited and revised version of the bill that they had last session, which is an adult use legislation bill filed by, and I'm so sorry if I don't say this right, Rep. Osienski. I think I'm saying that right. But there were a slew of amendments added to it last year. So the rep was forced to pull the bill, adjust it, and now he's trying to, make some middle ground between some of the really conservative legislators and the will of what the people want. There is an important thing that I'll notice is that there's going to be a provision for the establishment of a justice reinvestment fund, which would allocate resources back to communities that had been over-enforced or disproportionately impacted by cannabis prohibition. And that is in Delaware. So again, if you're just tuning in, first link in our description today is all of these updates that I'm about to go over and their associated action alerts. Next is Florida. Now, Florida has a lot of bills going on. Some have just been filed. Some are moving through the system, so I'm going to give a variety of updates here. So first of all, there's a package of bills having to do with a regulated adult use market in Florida. There's HB 549 and HB 467, which would allow you to possess 2.5 ounces of marijuana, and you could cultivate up to 6 plants at home. Then there's also HB 551, which would establish regulations for licensing businesses. There's Senate Bill 776, which would allow, again, 2.5 ounces of marijuana at a time, but no more than 4 ounces at any one time can be purchased. The measure would also allow for those convicted of a possession offense involving 4 ounces or less to have their record expunged. So that's very important. That's one of our priorities, expungement. SB 1696 allows adults to possess 2.5 ounces of marijuana. They like this 2.5 ounces and to home cultivate 6 plants, and also would establish marijuana consumption sites, which we think is really important, that there is a place to safely consume. Lastly, there's SB 1884, which again would allow adults to possess 2.5 ounces of marijuana and cultivate up to 6 plants. So that's important. Oh, I don't know. Can y'all hear my dog's toy? I can hear it. Sorry about that. I have a really cute dog. Owen, bring me your toy. Maybe I can make him be quiet if he brings it to me. But then I just take it away from him. Is that a bad for mom? we'll keep going because he's not listening. He's just out there playing. All right. Additionally, in Florida, there's been some pre-filed legislation to protect medical cannabis patients from discrimination. So there's SB 740, which mandates that a qualified patient's medical use of marijuana does not constitute the use of an illicit substance or otherwise disqualify the patient from medical treatment or other medically approved therapies, including and not limited to organ transplant and pain management. Super, super important. Also in Florida, HB 1247 and SB 1606 would prohibit public employers from taking adverse actions against an employee or job applicant who is a qualified patient just based on the fact that they do use medical marijuana. So again, these patient protections are extremely important. You can click on there and take the link to act in Florida. And lastly, there's SB 1488, which would allow individuals convicted of minor offenses involving possession of up to 20 grams of marijuana to petition the court to have their records expunged. And so expungement just means that it would no longer be visible on those background searches that we were talking about. Next is Indiana. Now the dog comes in here now that he's done squeaking on his toy. Sorry about that, guys. All right, Indiana. So legislation has been referred to committee legalizing and regulating marijuana in Indiana. There's a couple bills that I'm going to go over here. SB 324 legalizes marijuana purchases of up to 1 ounce per day for those that are 21 years of age and older. HB 1311 and SB 414 would legalize marijuana purchases up to 4 ounces per day for those that are 21 and older, and would also allow the cultivation of 4 plants. So those are the bills that are moving in Indiana. Great, and very happy to see those being filed there. Then in Kentucky, there's HB 136, which creates a medical cannabis program and also exempts medical cannabis from taxation. Of course, we should not be taxing medicine. I think that that's extremely important, and so that's what's happening in Kentucky. So I've got an update on Maine. You guys probably recall LD 1827 would let marijuana stores in Maine deliver marijuana plants, adult use products to any town or city inside of the state as long as the store is a retailer. These deliveries would be permitted whether the community has approved the operation of marijuana stores or not. And this bill did have a hearing on the 19th. And so we hope to have more movement coming up on that bill shortly. I saw some people in here from Mississippi earlier, so now I'm in Mississippi. Legislation is pending to legalize the use, possession, and retail sale of marijuana for adults, and that bill is HB 746, and it would allow the personal possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana and the home cultivation of up to 6 plants. It also allows for gifting up to 1 ounce to another person, so that's really important. Then there's some medical cannabis legislation that is moving through the House. House members initially approved SB 2095, the Mississippi Medical Cannabis Act, by a vote of 47 to 5. Senate members went on to then approve a slightly amended version of the bill by 104 to 14. The legislation now awaits a concurrence vote by the Senate before advancing to the governor's desk. So make sure that you send out that action alert. That's really important that we get the medical program in Mississippi robust. So that's very important. Additionally, there is legislation to depenalize. Now, you might be wondering, what is the difference between decriminalization and depenalization? Well, decriminalization is where, let's say it is a Class B criminal misdemeanor, and we get it reduced down to a civil fine. That's decriminalization. Depenalization is just removing all of the penalties associated to marijuana, but you don't necessarily create a regulated adult use market. So you're not going to be criminally or civilly, fined or prosecuted for possession, but you don't necessarily have a store that you can go to, and that's depenalization. So in Mississippi, there is a depenalization initiative, bill moving through, and that's SB 2183. That removes all criminal penalties for the possession of any amount of marijuana, but does not create that regulated structure that you normally associated with a regulated adult use market. Additionally, HB 922 would authorize those in Mississippi, to petition the courts for expungement of past marijuana convictions. So again, priority. Our priorities are legalization, depenalization, decriminalization. We want to have robust medical programs in every state. So whether that's the creation or the improvement of a program, we also really are looking for bills that will expunge records and also looking towards bills that create equity. So very important. So now we'll go to New Hampshire. N is for New Hampshire. I didn't say all of the other ones like I did with A, but I'll go ahead and do it with New Hampshire. So legislation is pending to remove all criminal penalties, right? So this is going to be another depenalization. Oh, I'm sorry, but it also comes with some other markets. So HB 629 would permit those that are 21 and over to possess up to 3/4 ounce of marijuana and 5 grams of hashish and to grow up to 6 plants. So that's pretty awesome. House members recently passed the measure by a vote of 241 to 113, and now it waits action in the Senate. So this is extremely important that you send out this update so that you can let your senator know that you want them to support this bill if you live in New Hampshire. Now in for New Jersey. So we've got personal cultivation bills that have been filed and referred. Currently under state law, growing up to 5 marijuana plants is punishable by 5 years in prison and a $25,000 fine. So A 1422 would legalize the possession of 6 or fewer plants. And then S353 would make it legal for a person 21 and over to grow and possess 6 ounces of marijuana for personal use. And regarding home cultivation, it states a person 21 and older may grow or possess 6 marijuana plants for recreational use with a maximum of 12 plants per household. A qualifying patient may grow or possess up to 10 marijuana plants for personal medical use with a maximum of 12 plants per household. So we've also got in New Jersey some medical cannabis bills that are pending. A19 or A197 expands the list of debilitating medical conditions to also include substance use disorder. The bill further removes current restrictions on limiting the edible forms of medical marijuana to patients who are minors and specifies that edible forms, including oils and liquids, are available to them as well. Then we've got a pair of bills, A997 and S342, which authorizes home cultivation for registered medical cannabis patients and or their designated caregiver. Talking about protecting those who are enrolled in a medical program from workplace discrimination, we've got 1830, which prohibits an employer from taking any adverse employment action against an employee based on the registry identification card holder or based on a positive test for cannabis, unless this employer can establish by a preponderance of evidence that the lawful use of medical cannabis in some way impaired the employee's ability to perform their job responsibilities. Then there's also A890, which provides that a drug test for cannabis shall not be conducted as part of a pre-employment screening, absent a few limitations that they do put in there. So that is what we have for you guys in New Jersey. Next is Ohio. All right, legislative efforts are underway to bring similar policies to Ohio, adult regulated market there. HB 498 seeks to allow adults 21 and older to purchase and possess up to 50 grams of cannabis and to grow 6 plants for personal use. A citizen initiative effort is also seeking to compel lawmakers to make this decision on the issue. However, Republican Governor Mike DeWine has been speaking out against these efforts, in fact saying, it's ridiculous to add additional problems to our state. So, Ohio, we have an action specifically towards Governor DeWine. Let him know that he's out of step with what you think and what most of the people in Ohio think, and that it's extremely important that he revisit his outdated views on marijuana legalization. So if you live in Ohio, make sure you let Governor DeWine know exactly how you feel about it. Click that link and send him a message. All right, we've got Tennessee now. So there was a hearing for this bill. It's HB 666. The most controversial thing was the number of the bill. So HB 666 and its companion bill, SB 1493, is known as the Veterans Medical Cannabis Access Act and would authorize disabled veterans via quadriplegia or paraplegia to possess and use liquid cannabis extracts. So it's very important that our veterans not be left behind and that they be included in these programs as well. In Utah, there is legislation to strengthen the medical program. It is passed the Senate and now it is pending in the House. But SB 46 strengthens these protections, makes some technical changes, and they repeal provisions about discrimination against parents in custody hearings because maybe they or their child are registered patients. Now, in Washington, legislation that would exempt marijuana from an excise tax has passed, and that passed with a 40 yeas, 8 nays, and 1 excused absence. So SB 509 and its counterpart SB 504 would both provide tax exemption on medical marijuana purchased by registered patients. Additionally, in Washington, there's SB 5517, which protects marijuana consumers from employment discrimination by prohibiting employers from refusing to hire an individual based on if they use marijuana off the job or if they have a positive THC test. And this bill did have a hearing on the 19th, so we hope that we will see that continue to move. And then lastly for Washington, there's a bill pending, HB 2022, to ensure greater and more diverse participation in the cannabis industry, and it would establish a social equity program to make sure that additional retail licenses were giving to those that are in groups of minorities, such as women, people of color. So that is HB 2022 in Washington. Now, for the last state of the day, W is for Wisconsin. Legislation has been filed in Wisconsin to legalize and regulate marijuana. So SB 545 and AB 846 permit adults to possess and purchase up to 2 ounces of marijuana from licensed outlets and to also grow up to 6 plants at home. It also established regulations for protection and sale of marijuana to anyone over the age of 21, in addition to establishing a regulated system for qualified medical marijuana patients to access their medicine without having to pay taxes. This legislation would also facilitate the expungement of certain past marijuana convictions that you might have. So that is what's happening in Wisconsin. Now, I know I went over a lot of stuff here, and maybe you heard your state mentioned, maybe you didn't. So if you want to go and check and see what's going on, you can go to norml.org/act. At the top of the page, you'll see all of our federal actions. And then at the bottom of the page, or I'm sorry, right below that, you'll see a map of the country, and you can hover over your state and it'll pop up and show you how many bills are going on. Click on it and you can do all of the actions there. So there's a lot of ways for you guys to be engaged. I also want to remind you that you can become a member or you can shop or donate towards NORML. You know, we are tracking over 400 bills right now, and that number is about to go up once I get off of this live stream and take a look at our list for today. And that takes a lot of work from us and the team and the staff here at NORML to make sure that that happens. So please do join, become a member, or shop on our store, get some of our cute swag. You can also just straight up donate if you would like to just help a good cause. So again, if you want to take action, norml.org/act. We've got both federal and state level actions that you can find there. And I'm going to hop over to these comments real quick and see if you guys have any questions for me. South Carolina, you guys have had a few bills moving, so please do make sure that you go to norml.org/act, click there. I see Florida in here. I went over some from your state, so you did hear about that. Indiana, we covered your state as well. New York City, New York does have some items moving, so make sure you go to norml.org/act and hover over New York. You can find all of those there. Let's see. What about the decriminalization of marijuana at the federal level? All right, Paul, let me give you some clarity there. So we cannot decriminalize at the federal level. The federal level, the way that we change the law is by changing the scheduling. So the wording that you're looking for there is descheduling. And once we remove it from the scheduled lists, then it would no longer be on those prohibited lists for other states. And that is what we want to see at the federal level. So when it comes to state levels, you know, states kind of make those drug laws and they manage them there. That would be called decriminalization, but at the federal level, it's called descheduling. Some people support descheduling, which is fully removing it. Some people support rescheduling, which just means changing the scheduling that it is. However, at NORML, we believe that anyone should be able to have access to cannabis, and if we just change the schedule, it would still reserve it to just those that are registered medical patients, and it's important that everybody have access. All right. I think I covered everything. I'm going to go get on the spreadsheet and look at all of these other bills. So I'll see you next week. Just a side note, Morgan was going to join me today, but I had some technical issues and started a little bit later, and he had some meetings. Morgan Fox is our new federal lobbyist and working at policy at the federal level. He's doing great work, and I apologize that I was a little late and wasn't able to bring him on, but we are going to reschedule to get him on here. I know some people want to know what's going on with the MORE Act, and I do know that he was able to get 2 more sponsors to sign on to the bill this week. So toot toot that little horn for Morgan, but we'll have him back very shortly. On that note, I'm going to sign off for you guys and say thank you so much for joining us today. And I will be back next Friday. Same bat channel, same bat time.